It only took 4 months for Black Sabbath to transition from their first album to their second. Something where if it were to happen today, a lot of people would say, whoa, 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 didn't I just digest one album? Now I have to digest another one? What the fuck? There's so many other things out there. This was a different time. So whenever Black Sabbath's Paranoid dropped 4 months after the release of their debut LP, this wasn't exactly something that was all that rare. This is something that was happening with every big band out there, including bands such as the Beatles. This was not an unusual idea for bands to output all of this material in multiple albums, dropping multiple albums per year. Paranoid, though, is going to go down and has gone down in heavy metal infamy for being one of the greatest albums of all time. Why is that? The names, the songs that are on there, they're instantly recognizable. War Pigs, Iron Man, Paranoid itself, and the whole rest of the album is no slouch either. This is a consistent record. This is a record that definitely kind of takes the idea that was initially kind of spawned on the Black Sabbath solo, the Black Sabbath self-titled release, and really just cranks it up, dials it up a little bit. Why? Because they had a little bit more time. They had a little bit more time, a little bit more of an opportunity in order to get this material together and kind of get it ready. Not to mention also a little bit more time and a little bit more of a budget in order to represent it in the way they want. This is still a very dusty, still a very bleak atmosphere. Still a very, very, low-budget feel to it. Almost like you're listening to a B-movie. But at the same time, that kind of disjointed environment that I spoke about with the first LP has transitioned over into the second LP and still is the principal cause for all the disorientation that you sometimes feel whenever you listen to these albums. Even today, even over 40 years later, you can still feel that disconnect. Imagine what it was like whenever these people in the 1970s and 1970 were listening to this on their record player. That's right, their record player. Throw your CDs away, Junior, and pick up some wax. Pick up a vinyl. And find out what they would feel whenever they throw on Paranoid for the very first time. It's crazy. The tones that you hear are just absolutely bananas. Imagine if you were taking some sort of psychedelic drug. Imagine you were still, smoking weed where it wasn't exactly all that, hated and distanced and things like that. Imagine you're on a nice high. It's a Friday night, you're having a nice high, and you decide to pick up a couple of records. One of them happened to be Black Sabbath's Paranoid. And you start to listen to this, you hear Ozzy's high-pitched, just ridiculous vocals mixed in with the demonized music of Tony Iommi, Rich Ward, Geezer Butler, and you just think to yourself, excuse me, Bill Ward, I'm sorry, and you just think to yourself, what the fuck's going on? Have I just been transferred into some sort of, real-life B-movie situation, scenario, apocalypse, horror? What's going on? The disorientation trip continues. You start to feel distanced from your own body and mind. You become engulfed and swallowed into this fantasy world that feels so goddamn real that you're not sure whether or not you should pinch yourself to realize that it's just music. This is an album that takes you on that journey, on that thrill ride. And this was an album that really helped Black Sabbath get launched into markets outside of Britain and Europe. This is where they really became annexed a lot in North America. Paranoid, of course, had the music video that was accompanied with it, which was in itself a very disorienting experience for a lot of people who viewed it. And of course, the controversy would come considering their lyrics, their imagery, everything was extremely dark. Heavy metals, the shadow cast over heavy metal had already begun with the release of an album such as Paranoid, because now there is 2 releases back to back by this band that was presenting these just absolutely radical images that you just didn't hear up to this point. You heard the psychedelia. You heard the experimentation, but you never heard something this dark. And it just baffled people. It insulted people. It just scared people to the point that it became controversial. Metal fans, you and I would listen to an album like this and we would laugh at it. We would laugh at the fact that 41 years ago, people listened to these albums and they were scared. Metal fans, we've heard way worse, obviously. However, If not for those two albums, we would not be privy to that distinction, and we would not be privy to that atmosphere. We would not have that pleasure. Paranoid is one of the first great heavy metal albums. And it will forever be one of the most important albums in our genre's history. And I will say this to all of you who have not listened to Paranoid in a while. Take a throwback. Take a listen. You'll be glad that you did. But as for me, it's time for me to move on to release number 3.